Good day to you. I'm Bernie Miklasz, and this, of course, is The Bernie Show here on SportsHubSTL.com. The Bernie Show, as always, is presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Thank you, DraftKings. Well, the Blues went to Winnipeg for the first two games of the first round series, and while I'm sure Winnipeg is a great town, the Blues would have enjoyed their visit a lot more had they come home to the Lou with the 1-1 series split, at least. And really, they were in position to win both games, as you know. They dropped both of those contests to the Jets, who obviously are a really outstanding team. They had the best record in the NHL this year, but both games were essentially one-goal battles. Winnipeg led 4-3 in game one and then dumped in an empty netter to make it a 5-3 final. The Jets actually had a plain old one-goal victory in game two, winning 2-1. I'm certain I speak for many of you when I say both of these losses bothered me because the Blues could not take advantage of a pretty glorious opportunity to win not just one game up yonder, but both games up yonder. The Blues had a 3-2 lead in game one and were dictating play with a physical crunching style. They seemed to have the Jets in retreat. The Blues racked up a huge number of hits, and that wasn't enough, though, to wear the Blues, Freudian slip. It wasn't enough to wear the Jets down. I'm afraid it kind of wore the Blues down. All of that physical play and playing bumper cars and going bananas and running guys, and it was great stuff to watch. It was very entertaining, but I don't know that the Blues got the best of that in terms of the impact it made on both teams, because the Blues were the team that faded both times in the third period. So if the strategy was to do that, try to pound Winnipeg into some kind of gradual submission over a long series, well, it didn't work in the first two games. The Jets were the better team, as I mentioned, in third period of game one, and they were the better team again in the third period of game two. And as I mentioned, the Blues, not the Jets, appeared to be the team running low on fuel late in both games. I could be wrong, but I think the turning point of the series, or at least in the first two games, came when Winnipeg goaltender Connor Hellebuyck stopped Jordan Kyrou on a breakaway when the Blues were on the brink of extending a 3-2 lead to a 4-2 lead. That would have been huge. Had Kyrou cashed in, Winnipeg may have sagged because they were already a little wobbled in this game, and then they get down by 2 goals in their own building, and the Blues have all this momentum. Well, Winnipeg is no doubt about it, a very talented team, but it's also a team that has failed to get much done in the postseason. And Blues fans know all about that with all the postseason heartbreak through the years until they finally won it all in 2019. Winnipeg's kind of like that now. Many great things are expected in the postseason, but they've produced very little. So I think that gets in their heads a little bit. I understand that. It certainly got in the Blues' heads way back when they had some of those great teams, whether we're talking about during the Brett Hull era or we're talking about the Joel Quenneville era or the Ken Hitchcock era, if those things are eras. But, the Blues had some super teams, but just kept getting bounced from the postseason. I think Winnipeg is kind of in a similar spot, psychologically or whatever you want to call it. In the previous two postseasons, the Jets played 10 total first-round games and won only 2 of them. The Blues had the Jets, I think, shaken a little bit, or they certainly were unsettled and did not appear to be a very confident team because the Blues took that lead and just kept going. But Hellebuyck made that timely stop on Kyrou, and it really seemed to stabilize his confidence, but also give a real mental boost to his teammates. Now, it would be overly dramatic and a bit nonsensical to declare that Hellebuyck saved the series for Winnipeg. It's too early for that. Because if the Blues get reorganized and get back to doing what they do best in Game 3 on Thursday at Enterprise Center, I think we could be in for a long suspenseful series. Sorry about that. I'm having a hard time today speaking. I sure hope that that's the case because I'm in the mood for a long and hopefully successful series for the Blues. But the fact is, since Hellebuyck denied Kyrou on that breakaway, Winnipeg has outscored St. Louis in the series 5-1. And yeah, that that includes an empty netter. But they since that moment that could have been a turning point for the Jets, they've outscored the Blues 5-1. That's the bottom line, and that's a pretty big deal, I think. It clearly shows that 5-1 after the Kyrou missed breakaway or just being stopped on the breakaway. Sorry, that 5-1 count since that moment really does show a substantial swing of momentum. And of course, it went to Winnipeg. But does that mean it's got to stay with Winnipeg? Of course not. The Blues can get back in the series. And I'll tell you a few things. And I'm sure you know a lot of this or most of this, if not all of this. But I'll talk about and tell you about a few things that just have to be done to make a strong comeback possible for the Note. But first, thanks for letting me have a chance to talk to you about DraftKings. Baseball season is well underway, so you should be warmed up for your chance to step to the plate with DraftKings Pick 6. Think of DraftKings Pick 6 as your blazing fastball right down the middle. It's the easiest way to play for cash and get the big win. Here's how it works. You select 2 or more players. I'm just giving you a hypothetical how you do it. And you choose if they will have more or less of a particular stat. For example, look at the pitchers. When you go, when you look at the DraftKings app, like you hit MLB, then you call it up. Look at the pitchers that are listed. Who has the best chance that day of striking out 8 or more hitters? Or on the other hand, who has a low probability, in your opinion, of notching 8 strikeouts? As the manager, you get to make that choice. I'm just giving you an example of how it works. Pick 6 is available in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. Cash in your baseball knowledge. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. So download the DraftKings easy-to-use app. Use the code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, thanks to DraftKings, and let's get back to my thoughts on what the Blues are going to have to do. It's pretty mandatory, actually, to get back in the flow and even up this series and kind of reassert themselves, right? Number one, obviously, they got to win the next 2 games at St. Louis Enterprise Center. The joint will be hopping, it'll be jumping, it'll be rocking and vibrating, and the Blues should be able to get back to their A game. The Blues had the best home ice record from February 8th until the end of the season, regular season, going 14-0-1 at 14th and Clark. In those 15 home games, I have to hesitate because I have to believe my own stat, and it's true. The Blues scored an astounding 69% of the goals in those 15 games. Now, that is home ice dominance, right? They were not kind to visiting teams for sure, and the Blues fans were not friendly to visiting teams either. And the Blues and their great fans won't be polite when Winnipeg comes in here with some idea that they're going to strengthen their grip on the series and win at least 1 game, and they're probably dreaming, we can end this, boys. We can end it in St. Louis. All right, the Blues have to disabuse them of that notion. They have to make it perfectly clear that ain't going to happen. And I believe the Blues have to win both games because I wouldn't like their chances of making it back from a 3-1 series deficit. Because by that point, if it gets to 3-1, I think the Jets have a lot of confidence. They're feeling like they're getting that, proverbial monkey off their back from the playoff collapses. Who knows? Do I think it's impossible for the Blues to come back from a 3-1 deficit? No, it's not impossible. Is it unlikely? I would have to say yes. All right, number 2, the next assignment is absolutely essential. This is huge. The Blues have to get back to being a relentless force at 5-on-5 hockey. The boys rarely took control of 5-on-5 play in the first 2 games, and the results were, frankly, a little embarrassing. And I say that not to try to be a big mouth. I'm just saying, it comes out of respect because the Blues have been so dependably strong, consistently strong at 5-on-5 since Jim Montgomery took over as the coach back on November the 25th. So to see them go to Winnipeg and fare so poorly, play so poorly at 5-on-5, their strongest area, that was really surprising to me. In Monty's 60 regular season games as the Blues coach, his team was tied for first, ironically, with Winnipeg, for a 59% goals scored share at 5-on-5. And once Montgomery got his new forechecking system installed, to great success, by the way, the Blues were even more formidable at 5-on-5, scoring a league-high 64% of the goals at 5-on-5 in their final 25 regular season games. I mean, you're scoring 64% of the 5-on-5 goals over 25 games. You have it in you. You have it in you to summon that and put that into play, put that into action again. The Blues had 12 home games since the end of the Four Nations face-off tournament. And in those dozen games, the Blues went 12-0 by outscoring visiting teams 38-13 at 5-on-5. That is 74.5% of all 5-on-5 goals scored over those 12 home games at Enterprise Center. That is just phenomenal. Now, if they did it for 12 games, they certainly can do it even against Winnipeg for the next 2 games at home. But during those first 2 games at Winnipeg, the Blues' mighty 5-on-5 machine broke down, or maybe the Jets knew how to disassemble it. We're going to find out if that's the case. Because in the 2 games up in Manitoba, the Blues were outscored. The Blues were outscored by the Jets 5-1 at 5-on-5. The Jets controlled 60% of the scoring chances, and they had 74% of the high danger shots. That is really domination. And that's why I said it was a little embarrassing for the Blues, because the Winnipeg beat St. Louis at its own game, right? And don't get me wrong, Winnipeg is a strong 5-on-5 team, one of the most impressive 5-on-5 teams in the NHL at playing that kind of foundational hockey. But there's no good reason for the Blues to be so ineffective as they were at 5-on-5 matchups in the first 2 games. Sure. They absolutely miss the injured center, Dylan Holloway. He's been fabulous for this team. And I don't think defenseman Colton Parayko is at 100% after coming back from a knee scope. And, of course, a lot of individual Blues need to step it up and raise their performance level in games 3 and 4. I am certainly not picking on Robert Thomas, who played so sensationally well down the stretch. But as you know, he went off the ice in the final regular season game with an unspecified, what appeared to be lower body injury, and he hasn't missed any time since then. He played in games 1 or 2, but I imagine he's still coping for some real pain. As Jeremy Rutherford noted in The Athletic earlier this week, Thomas was kind of seen limping his way to the bus after one of those games. So if Thomas is physically capable, the Blues need him to get back to being the super center of their offense in the next 2 games. And while Winnipeg has been pretty dang strong at 5-on-5 play on the road, their goal share at 5-on-5 in away games is 10% less than the Blues' 5-on-5 goal share at Enterprise Center since Montgomery became coach. Put it another way, Winnipeg's a strong 5-on-5 team on the road, but the Blues are a stronger 5-on-5 team at home than Winnipeg is on the road. So the Blues, if they do what they do best, they should probably have an advantage. Now, listen, if the Blues lose the 5-on-5 battle over the next 2 games, this is going to be a short, sad series for the Blues and their passionate fans. Montgomery's going to have the last line change at home. Last line change always goes to the home team, as you know. You didn't need me to tell you that. He'll be able to get the matchups he wants. And he might be able to get the Thomas line free to get rolling again. That's the hope. Number 3, the Blues under Montgomery have been a tough net front team. They've outscored, since he became the coach, outscored opponents 92-73 from the high danger areas in the slot and in the crease. And Winnipeg absolutely took over that territory in the first 2 games. The Jets outscored the Blues 5-1 from shots in the high danger zone it was especially galling to see the Jets pretty much waltz on through the Blues defense. Well, when I say defense, I mean the entire team. The way they did, in the third period of games 1 and 2, just waltz right in for close range shots that led to the big goals, the decisive goals in each of those first 2 games. If the Blues do not reestablish their ruthless net front presence, then we're going to know that the end is near. They got to do it in game 3, and then they got to do it again in game 4. Number 4, and finally, the Blues can't afford to disappear again in the third period. I don't think their fans are going to let them. They're going to certainly have the emotional backing of a great crowd on the next 2 games. And I think the Blues just tactically will make adjustments. Montgomery's smart. His staff is smart. I think the players are smart. The veteran players know what's up. They're going to have to make adjustments, all of them. And the Blues players are going to have to refill their energy tanks to last for the full 60 minutes and overtime if necessary. They have to bring their energy back up to max levels. In the first 2 games at Winnipeg, the Blues were outscored 4-0 in the third period. And Winnipeg had a much larger share of scoring chances. The Blues basically vanished. They evaporated in the third period. It was just surprising to see. And it was a big, big change from the Blues' third period authority that we witnessed after Montgomery took over, but especially over those games played since February the 23rd or so. And unlike what we saw in Winnipeg, the Blues have to seize control of the play in the third period. I'm talking about territorially instead of just standing around and spectating. Blues had way too many defensive zone face-offs in those first 2 games. They got to get more of those face-offs. They got to use the forecheck, get more of those face-offs in the offensive end now that they're back in St. Louis. Listen, I express my concerns here, but I have faith in the Blues to make this a series. And that's all I'm asking for here. That's all you're asking for here, for the Blues to return to what they do best, reestablish their strengths, do the stuff that we saw them do when they came alive, one of the best teams in hockey late over the final couple months of the season. If they can do that, if they can reestablish who they are, what we saw, they'll be able to put some doubt in the minds of Hellebuck and all of his Jets teammates. I think it's entirely possible, but they got to get that done. Hey, thank you all for watching, and thanks to DraftKings, and we'll be back tomorrow hollering about something here on The Bernie Show. That's all for now.